having found these stories a little overly gendered in one direction, the Prince Jampa story has suddenly become Princess Jampa. And so this is a story about two kingdoms. And in one kingdom, Princess Jampa was growing up, and she had been told these stories about the other kingdom that was not too far away, but not close enough that they ever communicated with one another. And so Princess Jampa grew up believing that the other kingdom was full of sinister people, bloodthirsty people, people who insisted on making their children work all day and eat mud, and they ate other people. It was just a horribly sinister, bloodthirsty, savage group of people. And then one day, and so Princess Jampa thought for sure when she grew up, she would be a warrior, and she would go fight. She would go fight for the safety of her kingdom. And so on one day, Princess Jampa heard somebody at the gates of the kingdom and went down. And it was somebody begging, somebody with a basket saying, "Would you please share money so that I could eat? Do you have any coins?" And Princess Jampa gave her the coins, and then said, "Where are you from?" And lo and behold, she was from that sinister place. And so she looked at him and she said, "Well, why would you come here? I've heard you are savages and sinister people." And the woman said, "Well, I've only heard wonderful things about your kingdom." And she said, "Well, what do you mean? What exactly have you heard?" "Well, I've heard that your people are so generous they would give us money and help us to eat." And so with that, the woman went on her way after giving thanks. But Princess Jampa, having been full of all these lies, went and said to her father, "I figured it out. That other kingdom, they are so sinister and savage and clever that they're going to send all of their people over here to take advantage of our generosity, and we are going to be depleted of all of our money and all of our food. Father, mother, we must attack soon." And so the parents said, "Well, that sounds wise," because they, of course, had been filled with all of the lies about the sinister families as well, and bloodthirsty kingdom. And so the next morning, Princess Jampa, with 500 soldiers, set off with bows and arrows ready to conquer the other kingdom. And as they got closer, they came across a monastery, and they looked up, and a monastery is where people sort of like me live, but without a lot of other people. And there's a lot of praying and meditating and doing good deeds and thinking deep thoughts and thinking about kindness. And so Princess Jampa, who was also a thinking person, looked up and said, "Well, I wonder why they would have this evil kingdom, would have a monastery full of religious and spiritual people. That doesn't make sense." But just as she was thinking that thought, suddenly the monastery doors opened and a whole flood of the monks came down, and they were wearing these masks, and they were running down the hill toward them. And Princess Jampa said, "They're going to attack us with those evil masks. Quickly, get your bows ready." And so all of the soldiers got ready to shoot. And the monks saw that and turned and ran back. And Princess Jampa, relieved, took in a deep breath and said, "Thankfully, we have survived." And they moved on. And then they came across a big field with all the villagers out in it. And the villagers were pulling in the harvest and working all together and singing songs, these beautiful songs that she had never heard, the chanting. And again, the thinking part of her head said, "I wonder how it is that this sinister, sinister place, this sinister people could have such beautiful songs. Why would they have beautiful songs?" And just as she was thinking that, the villagers turned and recognized this army and Princess Jampa, and turned and looked at her and went like this. And she shrieked in fear. She said, "They've got snake-like tongues. They're cursing us. Ready your bows, army." And so the army got ready to shoot. And the villagers, seeing this, were understandably frightened and ran off, except one girl. One girl went running through on the path, and they thought, Princess Jampa said, "She's going on a shortcut. She's going to warn the kingdom. We must race there." And so they rode on their horses, and they were ready with their bows. And as they got nearer to the kingdom, Princess Jampa said, "Get ready to attack. We must be ready to attack." And they're just about to do it, and suddenly the gates opened, and they saw young children like Aaron, like the boys, running out and dressed in party clothes and singing and throwing flowers. And she said, wait, stop. And then right behind them was a girl, a young woman of about her age with a crown, walking toward her. And she said, welcome. A young girl said you were on your way. We're preparing a feast. We hope you'll join us. And Princess Jampa felt like she was really a little messed up with a reality check there. She looked at her and she said, why would you invite us into a feast? You're our enemies. And she said, why would we be your enemies? We've heard nothing but wonderful things about your kingdom. She said, yes, but your monks, they came racing down to curse us. And she said, curse you? Well, they had the masks on. They were horrible. Those are the masks to ward off demons on your travels. They were coming down to bless you and wish you safe journey. Yeah, but the villagers, they stuck their tongues at us. They were like snakes coming out of their mouth. It was so frightening. She said, well, our custom, whenever we meet a stranger, is to show that there are no lies written upon our tongue. And she said, okay. And she realized in that moment, because she was a thinking person, she realized in that moment that the only thing she had to fear were the stories that had been fed to her and created in her head. And so with that, she welcomed all of her soldiers to put down their arms and to come and join the festivities, and she made a new friend. Thus ends our second story. The two men walked slowly toward one another, both wearing bodies well worn by 8 decades of life, and one carrying the trauma of cancer. They greeted each other like this. One bowed low, and then the other opened his arms wide. They embraced closely, and then they stood back, still touching one another's shoulders, still embracing, but this time with their eyes. One reached out and touched the other's cheek, and with his hand there looked at him and said, you look good. The other puckered his lips as if to blow a kiss. And then the first took his chin in his hand and moved to kiss the other one puckering on his cheek. The other, unaccustomed actually to kisses from anyone, flinched, and then they both laughed. They laughed together, they took one another's hands, and they walked off, hoping to change the world. Today, I invite you to listen to their message in hopes that we may help them in some part achieve that goal. We may consider it a belated birthday present. You see, the setting of this encounter was Dharamsala, India, where the Dalai Lama resides in exile from his country, Tibet. The two men, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his dear friend, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of the Tibetan people and Buddhists. Desmond Tutu is the retired Archbishop of Cape Town, South Africa, and Christian. The event was the 80th birthday of His Holiness. Notable, the fact that His Holiness, was unable to join the Archbishop in South Africa for his 80th. The South African government has repeatedly denied him visas to enter their country, even for the occasion of the Archbishop's birthday, even on the occasion of the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates, of which he is one, actually both of them are. The reason for this exclusion is said to be the fear of angering the Chinese government. In 1959, the Chinese government destroyed nearly all Tibetan monasteries, attempting to annihilate Tibetan Buddhism. India, we're a complicated world. India welcomed the Dalai Lama into sanctuary and authorized the creation of Tibetan Buddhism in exile. In doing so, not only has this gentle religion that focuses on oneness and compassion survived in exile, it even remains strong in China today. And so they both met. The Archbishop, traveling at expense to his body, due to illness, but determined to meet his friend to talk about joy and to honor their birthdays with a gift to all of us. Some might say the gift was the marvelous book they wrote. It's called The Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World. And it's good. It's very, very good. It was the intended product of the week that they spent together following the greeting that I've just described. They wrote it in collaboration with Douglas Abrams, who interviewed them throughout the week, creating a rich tapestry of their voices and their views, and offering some of his own very wonderful commentary. Their shared thesis was that we all have the power to create more joy. That lasting happiness isn't tied to anything or even any goal, and that it's intrinsically tied to striving to make joy possible for others. That it's found inside of our heads and our hearts, and their message should find a home here, not simply because it's about love. That's a good reason and a good fit, isn't it? But because they say, you don't have to believe us. Indeed, nothing we say should be taken as an article of faith. And that also finds a good fit in Unitarian Universalism. You don't have to believe us. They challenge us to take whatever they offer and, frankly, to give it a go. And what they offer is having identified 8 pillars of joy, 4 of the mind and 4 of the heart, along with practices to hone them all. But do you know when you get a gift, Christmas or another holiday, birthday, and you really like it, but what really grabs you is how much thought went into the giving, that the person who gave it to you knows you so well or had paid attention so well, that it was perfect, that it didn't really even matter how much it cost or even if it fit or was the right color, because the thought was so beautiful and so clear. Or, alternatively, somebody gave you more than one gift thinking you'd really like the big shiny one, but it's the little one that captivates you entirely, or maybe the wrapping paper. Instead of that new electronic whatever you wanted, it's the Star Wars socks that rock your world. Well, friends, reading this book was sort of like that for me. It's really, really good. It's so good, I'm going to announce a special Spirit Circle session open to all just to read that book and talk a whole lot about it. But what grabbed me for a moment was something different. It was something else. It was the relationship. It was and it remains remarkable. The friendship between these two people, the friendship that they chose to create, is a beautiful, beautiful model, not just of their faiths in life, but of daring to cross cultural divides, put aside assumptions, and achieve change in ourselves, and through that, the world. Here in the shadow of the Himalayas, these two elders walked away from the airport to begin their week together, holding hands and laughing. In some ways, the two could not be much more different. One believes in a life after death that will have him joining God in heaven. The other believes in reincarnation, himself the reincarnation of a past Dalai Lama who chose him to continue his work. One grew up with his family during apartheid in South Africa, hoping to become a doctor. But because his family was poor and could not afford his studies, he became a teacher and later a priest, and then the first black man to hold the position of Bishop of Johannesburg and then Archbishop of Cape Town. He was one of South Africa's leading anti-apartheid activists. The other was identified as the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama as a preschooler, placed in a monastery at age 5, trained by the highest monks in the land, enthroned at age 15, and forced into exile to save his life and his religion a decade later. He would become known